First, I want to thank everybody for coming. We're working to get Dr. Gilsdorf elected for mayor. I want to follow some protocol here. We've got a lot of dignitaries in the room. And if I forget anybody that is running for office, there's a lot of dignitaries here, there's a lot of special people here, but I did want to recognize some people. This is not in alphabetical order, this is just how I wrote them down. Councilman Ralph Cumston is here somewhere. Okay. Councilman Jason Schauber is here somewhere. Councilman Ayers Ratliff is here with his child. What a good baby. That baby hasn't made a sound since it walked through the door. We've got former Safety Service Director Dan Cobb somewhere around. Dan is running for president of council. We've got the superintendent of schools, Dr. Barney, wherever you are. Thank you, sir, for coming. Matt Ferricks, running for law director, is here. Tracy Cooperrider, who is running for 4th Ward Councilman. And Pastor Ken Durchin, I have to mention him because he is my pastor and the captain of the chaplain on the fire department. And in case all you folks don't know who I am, I'm the retired fire chief of the city of Marion, so I have to recognize that he's here, otherwise I would suffer. This is going to be real informal, so at some point in this program, I'm going to start it off, and then I'm going to introduce Doc, and he's got a few words to say, but there's a lot of good people. First of all, did I forget anybody? Is there anybody running for any office that I forgot? Okay. This is going to be informal, so at some point along the time, I'm going to ask anybody in the audience if they've had interacted with Doc at any given time. It says some good things, so, and don't be afraid to shout out if I say something that is totally wrong. I first heard of Doc years ago when I had a child with crooked teeth. My wife came home and told me what it was going to cost, and I can tell you I wasn't too happy with this Dr. Gilsdorf guy. At the time I figured that he just needed another Mercedes payment, but if you know Doc, you know that he likes to drive Chevys and old Buick station wagons.
And 1994 Tans.
Yeah. Do you still have that station wagon? Yeah, of course. Yeah, you would have it. But my child's teeth got straight, and the doc did a thing called pay-as-you-go, which I remember because it made it a lot easier for a guy with a man and woman raising 4 children. So I never did thank you for that, but I appreciate it. And I think that pay-as-you-go is something that Doc's been doing for years and years, and I think we need to remember that. My next experience with Dr. Gilsdorf was after I became chief of the fire department, and he was a city councilman. In my 16 years as chief, I worked on a lot of projects concerning the citizens of Marion. Many of those had to receive city council's approval in the form of money. You can't buy anything in the city of Marion unless city council says it's okay. Every once in a while I'd receive a call from Dr. Gilsdorf that goes something like this. Hi Chief, this is Jim Gilsdorf. I was reading your report and I need to know, and then he'd ask the question, whatever it was he needed to know. I'd answer his question right off the top of my head, and he'd end and say, okay, thanks for your help, and hang up. Clearly he was doing his research on the subject. Usually he gave me no indication of what he was thinking about, and almost never gave me a heads up as to what he was going to do with the information I just gave him. I always got the impression that he was between patients, or he was about to put his fingers in some poor unsuspecting child's mouth, and it was clear he knew that he had to have an answer to this, and this was the time that he had to ask the question. To a department head, this kind of phone call can be exciting and disturbing all at the same time. You're excited because your reports are being read by somebody on city council. You're excited because all the work that you put into the project is being considered and studied by a councilman. I cannot emphasize enough the impact it has on a department head when a city council person shows interest in what you've been spent hours, maybe days, maybe weeks, maybe months working on. And I know there's a couple in here, I'm not just gonna put Doc in that position because I know Amy's here and Amy used to call me, and there were some other ones that used to call me, and I really appreciated that. But I want to emphasize how important it is for your city employees when council people do take the time to read what we send them and call out there. You're disturbed about these phone calls because you just gave an answer to a city councilman off the top of your head in a 30-second or so phone call. And you just gave it to Councilman Gilsdorf, who has a history of expecting answers from the department heads, and he actually expects them to be accurate. This would cause me immediately to pull the file to make sure that I told him what I told him on the phone was right. And then to revisit the entire project just in case it came up in the next council meeting. Sometimes it did, sometimes it didn't. Over the years, I received a number of questions from Doc. A respect was born of how he did things, and I actually started to become disappointed if he didn't call me on an issue. I was always ready for the call, and it made me a more knowledgeable chief. You see, it would have been an embarrassment to me if the Doc had asked a question I had not already researched, and I think the Doc knew it. I also think it amused him that it kept me on my toes, because I started telling him stuff that he probably didn't even want to know. Over the years, I became more and more appreciative of his honesty and his willingness to take on the tough issues the community faced. Controversial subjects. I don't know how many of you have been to council or seen what goes on. Politically dangerous issues. And sometimes he just wants to know the reason behind the decision. Doc has never had to fear of bringing things into the light of day. Does this get him into trouble sometimes? Yes, it does. And it's given him a reputation. I've heard a number of times he is gruff. I can't tell you how many people use that word. I don't know if it's spreading through the community or not. What do you think of Doc Gilsdorf? He's gruff. Okay? He's too direct. He can anger people sometimes. Yes, he can be gruff. He can be direct. And if you have a personal agenda that does not fit with the needs of the community, he will anger you by bringing it up. I have also noticed he does not accept incompetence well and does not look with favor upon those who try to feed him a line of wool. Let us not forget this man has 40 years of military service as administrative officer and commander. After 40 years of leading men and women in our military, do we expect him to be all warm and fuzzy? And now comes the question, do we want a warm and fuzzy mayor? I think not. During times of trial and stress, we all revert back to what we know and what we were trained for and what we were successful at. Marion is under stress. We all know the statistics, the unemployment, the Medicaid, people in need. We do not need taught Marion is having difficulty. We see it and live it every day. Marion does not need a teacher who instructs us on the history of our situation. We know the history. We do not need to be taught how difficult decisions are and then look to others to make them. We make decisions every day. We need a man who has 40 years of leadership experience. A man who does his research, tells us the facts, and then leads us to future successes. Decision making and action. If not now, when? When is decision-making and action needed more in Marion than today? Honesty and transparency of government. If not now, when? When is honesty and our citizens having trust in our government the most needed than during these current times? Leadership matters. If not now, when? When would leadership be needed more in our city than this very day? Let's face it, the mayor's job would be easy if the city had lots of money to throw at every problem that arose. If our businesses were thriving and all our citizens were doing well. If we only had our own printing press and didn't have to make choices, or at least push the decision to the next administration. We don't live in those times. During times of trouble and difficulty, there are those among us who step forward and unselfishly offer themselves because they know they can make a difference. Our country is full of such people. Successful people with accomplishments, people we can believe in. We have such a man that has stepped forward, not because he sees future opportunities in politics down in Columbus, not because he has a secret agenda or owes a special interest group, and not because he just wants to run for something as others have stated they want to do. Because he believes he can make a difference in our city's future. Now is when we need such a man as Dr. James Gilsdorf. When he asks you to help him to move Marion forward and be successful, say yes. Remember, if not now, when? Thank you.